Hey everyone, welcome to Wildlife Inspired. I'm your host, Scott Keys. I took the Z9 out for songbirds in the real world this time. For the last couple months, I'm going to tell you my thoughts about it right after this. A few months ago, as songbird season was approaching, I took out the Z9 and wanted to do some test videos for songbirds, basically in my backyard. Setups, easy to focus, easy to acquire. Talked about the fatal flaw when I was doing some of those setup perches, and I wanted to take it out into the field to see if this fatal flaw, this where it focuses to the distance and won't come back and focus on anything close. Is that really going to affect me in the field? Am I going to hate this thing after spending $6,000? Am I going to go back to my D500 for songbirds or my D850? So I took it out for 2 months, and I really wanted to work it. I have shot hundreds of hours with the Z9 now, specifically for songbirds, and I'm ready to talk about it. And is that fatal flaw still there? Now, part of one of the other things I want to mention, because you may hear me reference it here, is I did a video about memory recall and how you can compensate for that fatal flaw. So once you are off focus, if you set the memory recall to minimum focus or to bring it back, it will help you a lot. So on the Z lenses, you can actually program this feature with one of the buttons, with one of the function buttons. If you've got an F mount lens, with the memory recall button on the lens, you will be using it on the lens. And that's what I've done. The videos you're going to see today are shot with a 400 2.8 with a teleconverter for the most part. I'll show you some songbirds at the end. I'm not going to put all the settings in there, but I'll kind of show you that at the end, what I actually captured. I got like 10, 15 images of songbirds that I just captured this season. So before we go any further, let's go through the lens. I actually recorded it. So I took it out in the field. I had a really good session here, and I was able to tried to record a few birds. They didn't all work out, but I had one series that I was able to work with. This bird was really just feeding right in front of us for a long time, so I was able to get a couple quick shots of it. I'm going to take you through the settings here that you're looking at first. So just 1/500th of a second for songbirds, plenty of speed. Don't get obsessed with 1/1000th, 1/2000th of a second. If you've got that much available light, it's probably hard direct light. When I'm shooting in the woods, typically I don't have as much light available, and I'm shooting early morning often, so not as much light available. I was out this morning, I was shooting, and I'll show you one later in the series that was shot at 1/150th of a second in sharp. So no problems there. You'll notice auto ISO, I'm in dappled light. You're gonna see that ISO jump probably up to like 1,000, 1,200, and then come back down in some frames. So I use auto ISO a lot. So especially in these dappled light conditions. Go up to the top and you're going to see, I'll kind of highlight it with my cursor here. You're going to see 10 frames a second. I know a lot of you are thinking, well, why only 10 frames a second? It's a high megapixel camera. And honestly, I don't want to deal with 20 frames per second and come home with 1,000, 2,000 frames that I have to cull from just one morning. So I shoot at 10 frames a second for songbirds. Since these are mostly portraits, it's plenty. I don't need to worry about it. I need enough frame rate so that if I drop my shutter slower, I increase my chances of sharp pictures. And I've got a video on that about slower shutter speeds and just how to increase your chances of sharper photos by increasing the frame rate. However, 10 is about all I need for songbirds. If you want more, God bless you. If you can deal with the culling and the memory storage and all that other stuff, that's great. Now you're going to notice one more thing over here. The last thing I will highlight is just this 3D. This has been my default for songbirds. If you're using something different, that's great. I'm going to show you the advantages for me. Primarily that it starts as a single point in the middle. So it's very intuitive to what I've done in the past. And then it gives you the ability to compose in camera. So let's just jump right in here. I was working with a black-throated green. I'm going to play this video and pause it periodically. So here I am. I start recording and I just take some clips, and this black-throated green is bouncing all around, pretty close. I would say within 10 to 15 feet for the most part, sometimes a little higher, maybe a little further away, but kind of in this area. See how quickly this will pick up focus. There he is. And you can see right there, just absolutely drills focus real quick. You'll see at f4. So this is, again, the 400 2.8 with the teleconverter. What I'll show you here is that when it turns, that square turns green, that means I've got the shutter depressed halfway, or if I was using back button focus, it would mean that I've engaged focus, but I haven't taken a picture yet. I haven't clicked the shutter release yet. And then here we go. That line that's popping up every now and then is a horizontal line for the horizon to see if it's straight. I have that programmed to a function button. So if you see it pop up once in a while, just kind of disregard it. It's just part of what I do. And sometimes I'll hit it by accident. It doesn't bother me. So I leave it on. Now watch what just happened here. I'm gonna just go back and replay this. Notice how quickly I can recompose. I've got a nice open section off to the right of this frame, and he's gonna look that way. So if I wanna keep a loose composition, notice me starting to move it over. Boom. Now I've got it composed in camera. I know I'm going to keep them over there at some point, and now it gives me the ability to crop in a little bit from the top right if I want and have a nice open area there. So using that 3D tracking was really, really great. I didn't have, a lot of problems. There I am again, just grabbing the focus, grabbing the eye, and letting it track. And you saw me when he turned directions, I'm thinking, okay, let me get him on the other side, and I start to go, then he jumps off the branch. But that's what I'm thinking, as I get that focus, I'm instantly now thinking composing camera all the time, which is great. Really, really wonderful. Probably one of the biggest benefits of having that Z9. Here I am in a second sequence. So I cut this and I lost a few seconds here, but now he's on another branch and I'm right back at him. I grab the eye and he goes off, but you can see it grabs it really quick, no issues. Now in this scenario, by the way, most of the background is fairly close, like 20, 30, 40 feet away. I don't have one of those infinite backgrounds where it's going to lose focus and drop all the way back, and where I'm dealing with that problem where it won't come back. So I was pretty fortunate here that the bird was close enough and I was never jumping all the way off with my focus. There he is. I find him again. And just like warblers, as soon as I find him, he jumps off. So you guys are feeling my pain. I know a couple of you are like, yep, I know this feeling. And there I find him. Now notice there's foreground, but it picks right up on the bird. One of the advantages, and I'll show you a couple images later, is when there's foreground, the mirrorless body, the Z9, was able to basically, I don't want to say shoot through the foreground, but it was really able to detect the subject without bringing focus back and hitting the foreground. So while it's a detriment sometimes when it jumps off and doesn't want to come back, when you're shooting in foreground, this actually works to your advantage. And I found plenty of times with foreground where I was able to catch the bird or the focus and it wouldn't jump closer onto the foreground leaves. Since I shoot a lot of foreground and since I like this look where the bird is in habitat, worked really, really well for me. All right, here we go. It's tracking. Probably not going to shoot anything here that I get, but you can see I'm nailing it. And notice, even though that focus point jumped onto the foreground, it didn't focus on the foreground. So again, the thing that's bad about this in this situation actually becomes good. It's really good at shooting through foreground. I've got my lens collar loose. I always loosen my lens collar when I'm shooting because sometimes I'll make adjustments in the field. If a branch is uneven, I'll actually turn to get the branch a little bit more horizontal. So you will see this rotate a little bit, and that's just because my lens collar is loose. That's how I shoot when I shoot songbirds. And there he is, and there he's gone. He's down there somewhere. Let me keep looking. I see movement, which is always what I'm trying to do. Just a quick tip for how I locate songbirds is when they leave, I look for movement. So I go away and I look for movement in the trees. I find the movement as my eyes move, my camera moves with it. So I'm taking my camera with me. And then I go right back in and I'm looking for movement through the viewfinder. And normally you'll see some leaves bouncing around, either where they just left or where they're going to, always in the direction that they flew. And now I'm looking for those leaves bouncing around again. And there he is. Okay, now I've got a pretty good shot. So acquired focus real quick. Notice that really nice open area on the right side of the frame. So I'm going to try to move him over a little bit and he flies. So I lose him. Notice where that focal tracking point ended up. I'm going to back that up and just show that to you again. He's here. Watch it track him off the frame as he flies in a fraction of a second. Pretty impressive. Pretty impressive with that tracking. And then one more, just quick one. You can see he was on the ground. I couldn't grab focus of him before he jumped back up. So now I'm going to look for those trees moving. There he is, pretty easy to find. And I've got him framed really nicely. Mixed light here, so he's in shade, background's in light. I actually like that look. It could create a really nice artistic look. You can do a lot with that. Either way, bird's got light on him, background doesn't. So you reverse that scenario. And there you can see, just real easy to track. I scooch him over just a little bit in the frame just to give me a little bit more room over to the right. And it does a great job with it. And then he's going to fly off here. You can see it tracking though, jumping, keeping right on that head. Even when I wasn't moving, it stayed right with him. So yeah, I liked it a lot. I like the Z9 a lot for songbirds. It was probably better than I expected. I expected that fatal flaw to be a bigger problem than it was. Let me be honest with you. There were a few times I missed shots because of it. There's a few times I was focused further away, bird landed right in front of me, and it is incredibly frustrating when you can see a big ball of yellow right in the middle of your thing the focus point is on the big ball of yellow, and you're trying to get focus, and you have to go back to the lens barrel and you have to turn it and you have to pull the focus back, or you have to use a memory recall button or some other programmed button to bring the focus back manually rather than just have the autofocus system work. So yes, it's frustrating for songbirds. Did the pros outweigh that? Yes. The quick focus, the tracking, and especially the ability to recompose quickly. I liked the fact that I had a better success rate shooting through foreground. I was a little bit worried in tight spaces that the Z9 would not work as well. I think it might actually work better. When I get to sparrows, I'll probably have a better idea because I shoot sparrows in grasslands with just really tiny holes. I didn't get a ton of that, but I'll show you a few images here that I did get. So let me run you through 5 or 10 images. Oh, maybe a little bit more than that I took this year with the Z9. Indigo bunting. This is mountain laurel. You guys follow me on Instagram. If you follow me on Instagram, I'm a native plant nut. This is mountain laurel. It's one of our prized possessions of Pennsylvania. We really like this plant here. It's an important plant. And I just wanted a bird to go to the top of the mountain laurel. This indigo bunting, notorious for perching on the tallest tree in the area. There wasn't much taller than this. So there was another tree he was singing on, and then he came in and sang on this for a little bit, and then he went back to the other tree, but I was able to get him on this one. I really, by the way, I like this image a lot. Really, really pretty, at least for me. I think it's really, really pretty. I got this one this morning. This is, talk about shooting through foreground. There's a spice bush plant right in front of this American redstart. And I started down lower, and the bird was behind all of that foreground blur. I was able to focus. The focus point was actually able to find his eye through that entire green haze that you see in the foreground. Again, it seems to do really well with foreground. It's not going to make a picture for me. It's not going to create an image. So what I had to do is move my position up. So I was actually in my car, and I'm up as tall as I can get without going through the sunroof. I actually shot through the sunroof later to clear this spice bush because I didn't want to move the car and scare him off. But he was just in this area feeding. So he's bouncing log to log, branch to branch, right around in this area. And I was able to get this one where I've got the foreground, and then his head is just in that one open area. Really, really like that one. Pretty image. This next one, just a prairie warbler and some mixed evening light. No problems here. This is rhododendron, and I always want birds to perch at the top of these little clusters, and they never perch there. When this black-throated green landed there, I got really super excited. I was just like, oh my gosh, finally one of them actually landed where I wanted them to land. Pretty far away. So this is actually cropped in a little bit. So not one of those real close images, but yeah, as he was bouncing around in this area, he landed here and sang, and then he continued on his way. Really, really like that one. He sang on that perch for a while, by the way. I got a lot of images there. Chestnut-sided warbler, pretty easy. You could see that background out of focus. I love those patterns in the background. That's just me. I know some people like those super clean images with clean backgrounds. Me, I like the patterns. So everybody has a different style, nothing right or wrong. Like the way this light is framed, really soft morning light here. This one, I think this was in my backyard. I'm not 100% sure. I'm pretty sure this was in my backyard. Blackburnian warbler, again, notice the foreground on the right-hand side of the frame. The branches it was really windy. These branches were swinging back and forth. And so I focused, and I just kept shooting. And as the branches swung, every now and then there'd be an opening in the branches. One of the reasons I like to show this is because in the Z9, it stayed on the bird the whole time. If the branches swung in front, it didn't leave focus. It stayed on the bird the whole time. So I thought that was a really good example of how that focusing works. Really close. Now this is one where I wanted to show this. I actually missed a few shots of this guy at first. It dropped focus. You could see there's huge separation between where this bird is and the background. Its background's almost completely blurred out. Once I hit that background, it would not come back. And I remember missing several shots before I was able to get this one. I didn't think I was going to get anything from this bird at eye level. He was over my head for a little bit. I got him at eye level, and I thought I was going to miss it. But finally, it did retrieve focus. I'm not sure if I manually used the barrel or if I used the lens button recall, but I had to do one or the other. It would not focus on him this close with the background separation like that. Little black-throated blue warbler. I got a couple black-throated blue here. Another one, again, in the foreground, shooting right through the foreground with no problem. Again, I like these looks. I love this. I love in habitat. I like things that look like you're in the woods where the birds are supposed to be. You give me a warbler on a ornamental tree that's not even from this country, and you know it's cut and set up and perched. They're pretty, and people like that stuff. For me, and I know some people are looking at this like, oh, that's not as nice as the other stuff you're talking about. This is what I like. So my style is my style. Doubt I'm going to change it. This was in my backyard. Real easy here because I can actually set the memory recall on this perch. I just wanted to highlight the morning light in my backyard. I got a video coming up on backyard birds. I wanted to just show that once you know the light in your area, it's really great to optimize it. So I know exactly when this light is going to look its best, and I can optimize that. And then I can just set up the memory recall right on that perch. Here I was shooting another common yellow throat. The male was bouncing around singing, did not recognize that the female was right in front of me. This is probably only 8 feet away, not cropped or cropped just a hair for composition. And she was just right there. Notice it's one of those little tight windows, some ferns in front, and no problem acquiring the eye in that tight space. Just got 2 frames before she turned her head. So only a couple frames as she turned her head there. Now, again, if I was up at 20 frames a second, I might have had better success or more frames. So this would be one of those where if it's a short window, maybe the 20 frames a second is better for you. But for me, the offset is it's just too many images, so I stay around 10 frames a second. This one was I shot this from my house, 2nd story window in my red bud that's in my front yard. I have a 2 pairs of Orioles, one in the backyard, one on the side, and the neighbors. The neighbors pair comes into my yard because I have more bugs and more nesting material because they keep their lawns sterile. So they were very often, they were at my house. This one was pecking on a window. I had to put some decals up or put a screen in to distract them or her. And they were in that area for a long time. So a couple days they were hanging around this one area with this red bud. So I just went up to the 2nd story and shot them. And then last image here, just a blue-winged warbler. Pretty. I like the little composition, the head turn, showing the blue wings from the back. Every now and then you'll be able to get these songbirds facing the wrong way, and then you just wait for their head to turn. The focus is on the eye. And one of the things I wanted to show you here is that it's easy to get focus on the back when a bird's like this. Once the Z9 picks up the eye, it's pretty true and it stays there. So you just have to wait for that head to turn. And notice where he's positioned in frame, off to the left, because in that process, I'm also recomposing in camera. So this is all composed in camera, very minimal cropping. I didn't crop to get this. I composed in camera to get it pretty close and then just cropped for composition at the end. So that was my Z9 experience. Did I love it for songbirds? Yeah, pretty close to loving it for songbirds. I did not like the Z6 II, by the way, for songbirds nearly as much as the Z9. I thought the Z9 did a much, much better job in those tight spaces and locking on and tracking and the 3D. Like all of that seemed to be much better. The advantages were in the foreground situations. It stays on the bird. It doesn't want to pull to the foreground. And obviously the big disadvantage, which I've already talked about and many other people have talked about, is once it drops off focus, especially if it's way out, if you're getting 50 feet, 100 feet out, just doesn't want to pull back. Bird's not in focus enough and it can't acquire it as a DSLR would. The mirrorless systems just don't. So, but for me, the pros outweigh the cons. I like it. So it's great for waterfowl. I haven't given it a ton of tests for birds in flight yet. I've done a couple samples for birds in flight. Look forward to more of that. In the fall is when I do my bird photography, so I'll be looking forward to that. Hopefully I'll have a new lens by then, a Z-mount lens, and that should give me some benefits on that. So again, I'm using the F-mount adapter still, FTZ adapter. Thank you for your ongoing support of the channel. Hope you like the video. Comment down below. What are your experiences with it? Are you thinking about getting a Z9? Is it worth it? It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. I got to work a second job to afford this stuff, but I do like it for songbirds. Thanks for your ongoing support. And as always, I hope we can continue to find inspiration in wildlife together.